This is an overview of the Covenant of Sinai, giving us an idea of the similarities with these Hittite treaties and also some differences. The preamble is simply stated, I am the Lord your God. The historical prologue, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. The stipulations, which are the Decalogue or Ten Commandments. The covenant code, which follows that, the legal material. But also, some of this is reiterated in chapter 34 after the covenant making has been disrupted by the people's unfaithfulness. The covenant is to be preserved and publicly proclaimed, and here we have it proclaimed by Moses and written down in chapter 24. Now, as to witnesses, there are none, in the sense of there are no other gods, and God is creator of the natural powers, so God is the sole witness to this. So here it's a major difference, because you only have one God. And then there are sanctions, and these are not actually found in Exodus, but are found in Deuteronomy. There are both blessings and curses. And this particular covenant is then a preparation for God's presence among the people in the tabernacle, as we have seen before. And here I will post this as a PDF, but you can get a more extensive idea of this. So I am Yahweh your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And then the stipulations, and here we go through the Ten Commandments. You shall have no other gods. You shall not make for yourself a graven image. You shall not take the name of your Lord in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Honor your father and mother. You shall not kill. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet, etc. If you'll notice, this is a bit different because the treaties are actually formed in the context of possible war, in which the vassal, the lower of the kings, is promising to come to the aid of the higher king in his wars, and is also promising not to rebel. But here, the stipulations are much more all-encompassing as to how the people of Israel are to live their lives. So even though the form in some way of ancient Near Eastern treaties in general has some resemblance, the contents is much, much richer. In Exodus 24, Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord and all the ordinances, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which the Lord has spoken, we will do. And Moses wrote all the words of the Lord. There is then a ratification ceremony. He rose early in the morning, built an altar with 12 pillars. They offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings. The blood is thrown against the altar. He takes the book of the covenant and reads it. The people agree to follow. Blood is thrown upon the people. And finally, Moses states, behold the blood of the covenant which the Lord has made with you in accordance with all these words. And one of the major elements of this is, will the Lord who brought them out of the land of Egypt be their God? And here's where, again, the tabernacle comes in. The plans of the tabernacle are given, the tabernacle is built, and then finally God dwells with his people, and rituals and laws are given as a means for atonement, forgiveness, wholeness, and reconciliation in Leviticus. Now, what is the ultimate purpose of God's covenant with Israel? Is it just for their sake that this covenant is given? And there are numerous places in the Bible which say no, there's a bigger purpose here. That in Isaiah especially, we have the idea that the nations shall flow to the house of the Lord. Let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. Again in Isaiah 42, I have given you as a covenant to the people, a light to the nations, to open the eyes that are blind, to bring out the prisoners from the dungeon, from the prison of those who sit in darkness. And then in Isaiah 49, it is too light a thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved of Israel. In other words, it goes beyond the people of Israel. I will give you as a light to the nations, that my salvation may reach to the ends of the earth. In Jeremiah, we have the promise of a new covenant. But this covenant which I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says the Lord, I will put my law within them, and I will write it upon their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people, which was the purpose of the original covenant. But it has since been broken. And then we have in the New Testament, Jesus says, for this is my blood of the covenant. Think back to Exodus 24, during the ratification of the covenant at Sinai. Moses has the blood of the covenant, which is put on the altar and put on the people, poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. And in Hebrews, this is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, says the Lord. I will put my laws on their hearts and write them on their minds. Then he adds, I will remember their sins and their misdeeds no more.